I'm excited to bring you this first episode of Legacy Voices, featuring founder and CEO of Matthew's Hope, Scott Billue. Scott and I have a chance to sit down and talk about the foundings of Matthew's Hope from 2010 all the way through today, the great things that they've accomplished. For those of you who know Scott, you'll know that he's a light, bringing light to the darkness here in Central Florida. For those of you who don't, you'll be amazed at the passion and emotions that he brings, telling stories about how he started, where he came from, how he got to where he is, giving some insight into people who are looking to start their own nonprofits, people who are looking to just get involved and make a difference in the world. So Scott and I have a fantastic conversation, and I hope you enjoy it and tune in for the ones of the future.
You know, injustice isn't injustice until it affects you. And then ask yourself, what can I do by myself? And then what can I do if I just kind of let my head open up to this thing? I think we'd find that our world would be a whole lot better place. You never know what you have until you give yourself away. And I find personally that I don't get caught up in my own junk, because I'm focusing on what I'm doing with other people and for other people. Is just get outside your own head.
Worry less about yourself, worry about others and you. And things actually get better. They do.
You know, I was making $100,000 income 30 years ago when it meant something.
Which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
30 years ago.
Now you make 100 grand and you're just like, oh, we're getting by. I have been assaulted. I can keep going. From a mental standpoint, when people are hammering you and you're sitting there going, but this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just helping people. Why are you angry about me helping someone?
I'm David Terry. I'm the president of Legacy Events for Education. We're a local 501c3 nonprofit. Our mission is to inspire students, teachers, and communities to leave their legacy on the world. I'm sitting here with Scott Billue, founder and CEO of Matthew's Hope. I think everybody that's watching this knows what Scott is and the person that he is to the community. We wanted to talk with you today. Our goal of this program is to help people understand the importance of giving back. And so from somebody like you, I've been in the community for almost 13 years, and you've been a facet of the community for our organization, for the world, for that entire time. And anybody lives in this area and hasn't heard your name and hasn't heard Matthew's Hope, they're living in a hole somewhere,
And don't believe all the stories.
No, absolutely.
Some of them are better than the truth, but yeah, it's been interesting. I've been in this community a long time. We started Matthew's Hope just over 15 years ago. And when I think about where we're at now, David, compared to even the last time you and I talked, we, since that time, which I think is about 7 years ago or so, we have expanded so exponentially, it's not even funny, to where there's days where I walk through our campuses, and look around and go, how'd this happen? We started in a double wide behind a church that was a broken down building that they, quite honestly, if they were a little too cheap to haul it away. So they let us use it, and we renovated it and started Matthew's Hope in it.
And so that's really what the goal of this is. It's to help people understand the importance of giving back and what it can do for the community. So can you tell us about the moment that first inspired you to get going in community work?
I think honestly, a lot of it started when I was a kid. I always seemed, I was a big kid. Everybody thought I was going to get much bigger and play professional football. I was a good athlete and did very well. But I was always kind of standing up against the bullies. And I was standing up against, sometimes people say, you stood up for them. You don't even agree with what they're doing. I said, I agree less with the way they're being treated for believing what they believe. And I find at 63 years old, that little kid is still there going, quit picking on him. Stop it. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And, having gone through homelessness myself, it played a role in this, but I think more so it was seeing people being disenfranchised and being throwaways. And nobody's a throwaway. And that got me really thinking about what could I do differently. And so, I went to seminary in my 30s after a 20-year sales and marketing career. I went to seminary, but kept feeling led to come back to a place that I had to navigate with my family and again by myself, and realize that people really weren't helping. The clothes and the food was nice. They're essentials. But what was happening to move people out of homelessness? So I thought I could do it differently. I kind of watched and I would tell this to anybody who's watching this or listening to this, watch what other people are doing. You will learn a lot about what not to do, which when people say, where's your success come from, Scott? I really watched what everybody else was screwing up. And I said, okay, let's flip that. And then look at my own personal challenges in homelessness and going, what was I missing? What were they not telling me? What I found that in this, whether it's homelessness or something else someone gets involved with, focus on relationships. Relationships change everything. And having an open mind to another way of thinking. I think the one reason Matthew's Hope has been, I always feel weird calling it successful, but has been successful is because we were always listening and always willing to turn and adjust constantly to what our demographic looked like and to what was happening in our economy and those things. Where a lot of organizations, the way they're set up, they're stuck and they got to stay in a square box, and they're trying to jam that square in a round hole or vice versa. And we just keep readjusting what that hole looks like and then readjusting the peg we're going to stick in it on a constant level. And so one of the things that really affected me strongly was, and I'll try to give you a short version of this, but I was going for ice cream at the old Publix location. It's not there anymore here in Winter Garden. I wanted ice cream. So I drove down. I was living in Oakland. I went down and as I'm approaching the Publix, they used to allow benches to be out there. Benches are all gone now. God forbid if you have a bench to sit on, someone might sit on it. I see this guy who, in my mind, is clearly homeless. And I say the stupidest thing I can come up with as I approach him going into the building, how you doing? And I thought to myself, even at that time, what a dumb question. I go inside and I get my ice cream. And as I walk out, I look at him and I say, have a nice day. Okay. And I go into my car and I'm sitting there and I'm starting the engine. And clearly it was like God said, go talk to that man. And I remember sitting there having this kind of conversation, arguing with God in my car that I had ice cream. And my ice cream was going to melt if I went and talked to this guy. I mean, that's really how it happened. And I sat there and okay, all right, I'll go talk to him. As I approached this man, he was probably about 6'4", much taller than I am, and had these piercing blue eyes. You've ever seen those blue eyes where it looks like somebody could swim in them? I mean, there's just something about him. And he stood up as though he knew I was coming to speak to him. And I looked at him and all I could think of, I said, are you hungry? He said, man, I haven't eaten in 3 days. And I said, well, let me get you something. He said, no. He said, so I'm just trying to rest out here a little bit. I said, no, I don't mind. I said, what would you like? He says, anything would be great. I said, well, they make great subs in here. He goes, yeah, anything we get. I said, no, what would you like? See, there's a difference when you do dignity type stuff. You go, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was giving him an option and a choice. And so here's how it unfolded. What would you like? He starts telling me. And then I said to him, I said, would you like something to drink? He goes, no, you've done, I go, no, what would you like? He said, I really like a Pepsi. I said, all right. I said, how about some chips? He goes, I said, what would you like? He said, I really like some barbecue chips. So I go back there, I go to Publix and I have him make up the sandwich that he wants and exactly how he wants it. And I have it, put it in 2 different pieces so he can eat one later, eat one now. And while I'm standing in line, I'm throwing some candy bars and granola bars in there. And I walked out to him and I've got this stuff. I said, my name's Scott. And I sat down with him. He said, my name is Will. This is 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago now. But I remember it like it happened yesterday. So we're talking and he's sitting there kind of like this, looking down at his bag. And he goes, Scott, I don't have anything to give to you. And I said, Will, you don't need to give me anything. I just, want to give you something to eat. And all of a sudden he goes, I know what I'll give you. I'll give you my alarm clock. And I thought to myself, first off, it had a cord. So, right. Okay. So I'm like, what is this guy going to do with, okay. I go, well, I don't need your alarm clock. Thank you. And he goes, you sure? I said, yeah, keep your alarm clock. And so we just sat there and talked a little bit. And I finally said, Will, I got to go. And I said, and we both stood up. And like I said, this man towered over me. And I said, Will, I don't know, where you're going, how you got here, but I just really hope that God walks with you every day. And he goes, Scott, God is with me every day. And I hugged him. And I remember people passing us and looking at us like, okay. And he hovered over me. So he's like, I apologize. I gave him the stuff. I got back in my truck and I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, who ministered to who? And all I could think about, will is the will of God. Okay. And yeah.
Right.
Okay. And I'm thinking to myself, when was the last time that man had any kind of physical contact like that? I mean, we had a full on bear hug embrace. Okay. And people looked at us like, well, that is wrong. And I realized that I needed that as much as he needed that. And that really set a trajectory on what was going to happen after that, because I couldn't get Will out of my head. I couldn't, it's just like this voice that kept talking to me. And so, I was pastoring in a church at the time and, I just really started it. And that happened a little bit before that, but started this church and was planted this church called Next Community Church that was here for years. We just naturally kind of fell in to serving the homeless. And that just kind of built from there. And then a number of years passed, and I realized I had a growing church. Matthew's Hope was growing. I'm burning out. And what is my real call here on earth? What is my real mission here? What is the footprint I'm going to leave? People refer to as legacy. I often refer to as my footprint. What just says that I was here? And that's really how the whole thing started. And a lot of things happened in between then and before and after, but that was the crutch of literally where all of a sudden it's like, boom, this is where we're going.
I don't even feel like I can ask the rest of the questions. Yeah. You're making me emotional over here. I mean, that's the will of God. That concept is just, you said that.
It's
so
a lot
deep.
to get your head
It's
around.
so deep. It's crazy.
And to feel that it has this emotional effect on me
I get it.
this many years later is very strange even to me. We've approached over 20,000 homeless people in the last 15 years. I've seen a lot of faces. I've seen a lot of death. I've seen a lot of victories, and everything in between. And Will is there. He's
Always will be.
still talking to me.
From that, how has the work evolved over the years? And can you give us some examples of some lessons that you've learned as it's evolved?
Well, I think that, and what I would tell anybody who is trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up, how they're going to leave their footprint. Understand that, I'm a $15 million organization now with 50 employees, 17 vehicles, a preschool, a mental health office, a medical office, a hair salon. I can keep going, right? I started in a double wide trailer. It was broken down. Okay. And we started when I was still in the church, we did what was called Sock Sunday. Because when I was homeless, if I could get a fresh pair of socks and underwear, even if I couldn't shower, it's like the angels sang. And so we did Sock Sunday, and that went so well, we did Undie Sunday. And to this day, there are churches in the area that still do Sock Sunday and Undie Sunday and bring us those socks and underwear, which is still a staple to who we are today. And so I think that it's okay for people to dream big, but it's okay to start small. And I know this isn't a God thing here that we're talking about today, but there is this thing that I do believe that when you do well, when we talk about the talents, when you do well with a little, he gives you more. And I think we just keep doing well with whatever's given with us, and then we do more. And then we identify needs, and then we kind of put that through the grinder, so to speak, and say, okay, how do we make this happen? And be willing to fail. I think that the biggest challenge I see, especially with young people, but all people, they're afraid of failure. And some of my best accomplishments have been through my own failures, because I like to just blame it on God. He had a bigger plan than I did, okay? And I don't blame it in a bad way. It's kind of like, hey, I could have shoved that idea through, but because I was forced to wait and be patient, it turned out much bigger than what I anticipated or what I thought I could do by myself. So I think be not afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to dream big, and do not listen to the naysayers. I think the biggest challenge, even today, is I've had a few board members, not very few, that have left over the years because they said you're thinking too big. And for me, it was never about thinking big. It was thinking about what's next. What are these folks not getting they need? And if no one else is doing it, how do we bring that into the fold? And people they think they have. I mean, some of these people are smart people. I won't use their names, but one was an attorney, and he was just like, he was almost too smart for his own good. It's probably why he has one office and he and his secretary. I mean, you have to think a little bit. Not everything is meant to be big, but if it has value, it will just become bigger. I don't know if that makes sense.
I get it. $1,000
Right.
in scholarships, and now it's 15. 6 years later. So it just happens, and we didn't do it on purpose. It just continues to go.
Listen,
God wants it to happen. It's going to happen.
There is nothing I have done on purpose. There's nothing I can say I've done on purpose. It's more been a reaction to something I saw. And who's doing anything about that? If they're not, then why not us? And that's kind of how, one of the things we're doing right now is we're putting Greyhound buses on the road. I take delivery, the first one today, actually.
Oh, wow.
And they're turned into RVs that 20 people sleep on them. And they'll work all over Brevard, and we're working on Orange County now. It was in direct relation to a new law that came out that made it illegal to sleep outside. And I don't believe not here is not an answer. Now, this is not an answer either, but it's a step to give people a decent night, safe sleep.
Absolutely.
So But everything, even with my preschool, I wake up one morning and I'm going to open a school, and people are like, well, what do you know about opening a school? And I know nothing. I'm a high school dropout myself. Okay. So sorry, kids. It's just the truth. I'm dyslexic. I'm ADD. I had a lot of issues, learning disabilities that were not really identified back then. So I was just considered the slow kid. I figured something out. Gosh, see the ADD should kick in. What were we talking about? So seriously, the school. And I realized, well, parents, everybody's saying, well, why didn't the bum get a job? Well, is anybody looking what it costs to provide preschool? And so we opened up a Montessori preschool, and we now have two preschools that serve mostly the homeless community and allows parents to go to work. And it's open 300, well, not 365, but it's open year round, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And these kids are getting, I called it Matthew Soap Firm Foundation because I wanted these children to get a firm foundation. The rest of it you'll figure out. What I will tell
You can find the people to do that.
You will.
The idea and the motivation. You can find the right people. The people will come to you.
They absolutely will, and they'll be drawn to what you're doing. I will tell you this too, that a fifth grade teacher changed my life. He identified that I wasn't a dumb kid, but he identified, and he said to me one day, he says, Scott, it's not what you know, it's you know where to find it. And here I am, 63 years old. I know where to find it. I've surrounded myself with, here's a kick in the pants through all this, is I have doctors, nurses, teachers, mental health counselors, and psychologists that work for me. Okay. And I literally am a high school dropout. So the beauty of that was I knew to be the best, because I believe that if you're going to do something, do it with excellence or don't bother. We accumulated those people, and now people are drawn to want to be a part of this because they see the impact we're making on the community. And so they're taking their time, talents, and treasures. In this case, they're taking their talents and they're going, I'm going to hook my buggy, so to speak. Sorry, kids, is that a word people use anymore? Wagon. I don't know. They're going to hitch on to us because it allows them to also live out their dreams and aspirations. And they couldn't quite figure out how to, my favorite doctor right now that works with us. I met him at some kind of meeting. He comes over and talks to me, and he goes, I did my thesis at UCF on doing mobile medical to the homeless. And he goes, I got a feeling I'm supposed to be doing something with you instead. And John Rothwell now is working with us, and he has now pulled in 3 of his nurse practitioners in, and every week in Brevard, they're helping with services, serving the very people that he felt led to do, but he still has his regular office, for everyday people. So sorry, I feel like I'm giving you some lot.
It's and what I've always admired about Matthew Soap and what you guys do. There's a lot of charities out there, some nonprofits, but that's not. Yes, you do that, and yes, you need that stuff. And we drop off stuff, and I actually need to talk to you about that before I leave. But we drop off stuff on a regular basis. What Matthew Soap does that I admire the most is the hand up. The preschool, that concept, the healthcare, because without some kind of somebody helping you with healthcare, how do you get yourself better? How do you get better in life if you don't have the basics of just, basics of simple healthcare?
And what a lot of people don't understand is that if you don't take care of the basic everyday needs, that small item, I'll give you an example for the homeless. We have all been bitten by a mosquito. Most of us at one time, especially when you're younger, scratched that open till it bled. And then we went in and we washed it out. Maybe our mom or something put a little antiseptic on it. Done, right? Now you're homeless. Okay. We had a guy today that had like 11 spider bites on him, and it was a mess. And if we didn't address it, it was going to be a bigger problem. But I have watched simple mosquito bites, because they're in this damp, moist environment, heat constantly, heavy bacteria living on the streets and the woods, what have you, turn into pus pockets big as a softball. We are serving about 75 people a week here in Orange County through our medical services. And that's 75 people that would have gone to the emergency room. Average emergency room visit, I think, is something like $7,500. So you hospitals, if anybody listens, mom and dads, listen to, okay, the hospitals need to be supporting us, because those are people that 2 things are happening. Number one, well, 3 things. Number one, they're getting care. Number 2, they're not taking over our emergency rooms. Number three, when you need to go to the emergency room, you're not waiting behind someone who just really is there for a medical checkup, but that was the only way they could get it. So there's value upon added value to that in what we do. And a lot of people don't understand that a lot of what we do has a much greater effect on the entire community. I call it the ripple effect. They're only seeing this, but they're not watching that ripple and what that does for the community as a whole, what that does for our hospital system, what that does for our school system. I mean, we're affecting so many different things that somehow, again, as I sit back, I go, this was never my intent. But how cool that these things are happening along the way that, I'm just not smart enough to figure out, but here we are.
Yeah. One of the things that, we've talked at a very high level from leading an organization, creating an organization, leading an organization, much smaller scale. I can identify with what you're saying because I'm at where you were, 15 years ago still. The people that need to hear from you as even more than the great things that you're doing and what you could do if you put your mind to it is if you just want to get started.
Yeah.
If you just want to be able to that you need to make a difference, you just don't know how. What would you say to somebody who's like, hey, I've never really volunteered or I haven't volunteered in years, and what do I do?
Well, what I tell people all the time, because I'm asked this, I mean, I've literally had people flying from around the country to try to figure out what we're doing. And usually they want this, and I try to explain where it started, and the enthusiasm level dies really quick. Number one is get involved someplace so that you can understand the truth of it. There's a view from this side of the fence, and there's a view inside the fence. You need to get inside the fence and do that. I tell people before you start finding out something to do on your own, if your plan and ability isn't to do it better, don't do it. Find out who else is doing it and become part of that. And it will either develop into more of where you saw your vision for it, or you will be prepared now to take the next step. Like I said earlier, you got to be willing to start small. I mean, I would have loved to have medical 15 years ago. I've had medical for about the last 8 years now. And we've added to it each year as resources have shown us up. When you show you know what you're doing, when you show the general public that you're a good steward of the finances, because it's their money, right? I mean, it's their money. We only take out of my $15 million budget, only 6.2% of it is taxpayer funded. The rest I have to come up with through mostly individuals like you and I. I would also tell them that I read a couple books. My staff, I tell them when helping hurts, toxic charity, and boundaries. Those are the three big ones because often what happens is people with the very best of intentions actually do more damage than they helped. And they make it very hard for an organization. I call them the goody two shoes. They go out there, they do this thing, and all of a sudden someone found, oh, this person's just giving me this stuff for free and all this kind of stuff. Why do I need to get that? Okay. But that person never comes back. We've been back there a few times a week, every week for the last 15 years and continue to grow. So don't be overly anxious to also, another thing I tell a lot of people is they say, well, am I called to this for life? I can't answer that for anybody. What will say though is sometimes you can be more effective not being in my chair. It's kind of like when I became a pastor, people expected me to talk about God. That's not why I talk about God. I talk about God because here's somebody who dropped out of high school. I've been homeless. I've been a drug addict. I've gone through all these different things and I watch what he did. That's why. The credentials, they really don't mean anything. So I encourage people to be willing to learn and don't look. Here's the other thing that's going to startle a lot of people. College isn't for everybody. Okay. Now, if you're going to be an attorney, if you're going to be a doctor, an accountant, there's certain things you've got to get a degree in, right? But there are so many other opportunities. And whatever that, let's say, identify that talent. There's an organization out there somewhere that can use your talent. I don't care what it is. They can use your talent. And then two things happen from there. You either fully feel that you need to fully go in this thing 100%, or you realize that, hey, I can be a donor with my time, my treasures, and my talents. And the truth is, that's really what makes most nonprofits work at the optimum level. Now, there's a few of us that, I clearly understand this is what God called me to do, but don't go on it. It's kind of like, don't watch football games, say I'm going to become a football player. You probably aren't. You might be a good fan and you may know all the stats, but you're not playing ball. But that doesn't mean you can't be involved. And so it's the same type of thing. And I encourage young people a lot of times that if there's something that bothers you, injustice is an injustice until it affects you. So when you see something, you go, that's just wrong. See, for me, it was really seeing these homeless people, not just because I've been through it myself, but it bothered me that that's just wrong. Okay. Whatever it is you see that you say, that's just wrong. That's probably a nudge that you probably should look into that deeper. And then ask yourself, what can I do by myself? And then what can I do if I just kind of let my head open up to this thing, to whatever's next? And I think that I think we'd find that our world would be a whole lot better place, and kids would learn a lot about themselves. And I'll just address this real quick. Look, we've got a lot of hurting kids out there. We do. We did in my life at that age, but I think more so than ever, there's a lot more confusion than ever was, and even in my life as a young person, and political things are just out of control. Religion is out. I mean, pretty much everything seems to be out of control. We probably aren't going to fix that. But what we can step back and say, you never know what you have until you give yourself away. And I find personally that I don't get caught up in my own junk because I'm focusing on what I'm doing with other people and for other people. Yep. And I think for a young person, from a mental health standpoint, is one of the best things you can do, is just get outside your own head.
Worry less about yourself, worry about others, and things actually get better. They do.
They really do. And I think that I have found a lot of, look, I've got some volunteers that I have now that are, high school student, college age students, and the joy that I see in them, because I know their whole story, and I know that all this story, some of it's pretty dark. And when they can express themselves about what they've seen, and they realize they saw the light go on in somebody else's eyes, and they realize that when that happened, their light went on as well. And I think that's the beauty of volunteerism and allowing kids to allow their empathy to be built. Because one thing I see a lack of in our world as a whole is empathy. We have kind of gotten the only way to get ahead is to step on the person in front of you. And that's just not true. I've done it both ways. I worked up the corporate ladder, and I took the guy's job that was older than me. And so I've done all that thing, and I will tell you that it's very unsatisfying. No matter how, and I made good money, it became very unsatisfying when all of a sudden you realize. I remember sitting there going to myself one day, "This is it." I was making $100,000 income 30 years ago when it meant something.
This is a lot of money.
Yeah,
30 years ago.
Now you make 100 grand, and you're just like, "Oh, we're getting by." So I was making money, but it was the lack of. It's like, this is it. And I remember sitting there going, "This made no sense to me." I've been poor. I've been in poverty. I've been through homelessness, and I'm thinking the angels are going to sing, and nothing happened. And it took me a couple of years of going through that same experience to realize, no, it's more about finding your passion. I told my own girls, who are all in their 30s now, I told them a couple of things, if you don't mind me sharing it.
Please, yeah.
One was, find your passion, and you will never feel like you worked a day. Find your passion. Wealth is overrated. But I also told my kids too, I said, and people find this strange as an ordained pastor, is I said, I'm not going to tell you what to believe theologically or politically. All I ask is this, is that you understand why you believe it, and then you're able to articulate it.
That is a rare feat today.
Okay. And I said, even if I disagree with you, I will respect you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Not because, I voted for so-and-so because my boyfriend's parents did. No, that's not an answer. I did this because I saw that. No, that's not an answer. Peel the onion back and find out what the truth is, because social media is not going to give you the truth.
No.
Okay. I can manipulate it 4 ways to Sunday. And unfortunately, we have gotten kind of lazy in our society that will just kind of go along with the crowd. And the crowd, there's, again, a little biblical reference, is the road is narrow. Okay. And it's okay to take the narrow road. It's okay to be on the right side of things, even when it feels like the gang's against you. And I go through that even at my age now and running Matthew's Hope. I've had hate mail. I've had death threats. I have been stalked. I have been assaulted. I can keep going. And I get, the physical stuff's easy. From a mental standpoint, when people are hammering you And you're sitting there going, but this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just helping people. Why are you angry about me helping someone? But usually it's due to a lack of understanding. If they come through here, we just had a state representative here today take a tour, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know what to say. This is incredible." And he goes, "This is how it should be done." I said, "Well, imagine me trying to tell you this in a conversation, what Matthew's Hope is." He goes, "No, you got to see it." I go, "Yeah, okay." So understand sometimes too, is that, the vision will sound crazy even sometimes to you. And again, going back to the naysayers, some of the most loving people in your life will shut your door faster than anybody because one, you believe and because they love you. And look, that does not mean don't listen to good advice, but take it like a sifter and see what comes through. Because I am confident, David, as we talk about this today, is that if these kids will allow themselves to dream without allowing everybody to get in their way. Now, look, if you want to be a cowboy, stop it. You're probably not going to become a cowboy, okay? But there are things that especially I think that there's a place in this world for people that feel the need to love other people, and that will pay dividends in ways that I can't even put into words. It's what gets me up every day.
I get it. I aspired to be you at some point.
You started a little late.
But yeah,
Trust me, you don't want to be me. There's
Yeah.
one's enough.
the concept.
Yeah, no, I get it.
concept.
I
But
get
yeah, so I work a full-time job. I still have a day job, and I do 1,000 hours plus a year.
Yeah.
In legacy. But I will tell you, and I'm not telling everybody. I'll even say this to the camera. I'm not telling everybody that you need to be Scott or me. Leaving your legacy on the world can be done without even going outside the house. And sometimes that's just praying for other people.
Yeah.
You can give back. I know some of our spots that it's 6 or 8 hours a year. You guys are looking for maybe a day a week,
Yeah.
or every once in a while, even if they have to.
Yeah.
That there's ways to be able to make a difference in the lives of your neighbors just by going outside and dropping a pie off to your neighbor and saying thank you. Well, one of our neighbors, they had mail stolen out of their mailbox a couple weeks ago. Had the little flag up and somebody stole the mail. She walked around to all the houses around her and told us all, "Hey, by the way, last night somebody stole mail out of my mailbox. I want to make sure you know." I don't think that people understand that's leaving your legacy on the community. That will mean something to every single one of her neighbors that she talked to, because she thought enough about her neighbors and cared enough about her neighbors to take time out of her day to go and warn us, because she didn't want us to go through the same thing.
Yeah.
So leaving your legacy on people can be as simple as just buying a sandwich for a guy, just saying the right thing, saying "I'll pray for you" to somebody who's homeless and is sitting on that bench,
It's
because that might make the difference to them in getting through today.
It's that simple. I think that sometimes people, again, when you see what's happened with Matthew, so I can't take as much credit for this as people give me. But the truth is that it really took a lot of people doing a little something. You do something, I do a little something. God has a way of honoring that. But for those that believe in other things, I'm just sitting there going, when we all do something, it just has a way of working its way out. Someone asked me about my legacy in the past, and I don't know that I really care if anybody remembers my name. I think what would be cool is, when I first got, I think I still had spiky hair when I last saw you, but I wasn't painting my toenails back then. So I've done a lot of things differently. I almost picture some guy saying, "I knew this chunky white dude, spiky hair, I can't remember his name, but he smiled at me and it changed everything." And I think I tell my volunteers, we have a volunteer meeting before each and every outreach day. And we gather everybody up and we tell them, "Hey, we have this special HIV testing or something like this going on today." I said, if we would just for a moment, just make eye contact and a smile or just a touch, we have done our jobs. All the rest of it honestly is just ancillary. It's just extras. Human touch, human connection changes everything, and it's something that we just don't. We've somehow gotten away from. Sometimes in trying to protect ourselves, and I think instead of protecting ourselves, we built a cocoon that's made very hard for people to crack through. I would encourage the other students, even with other students, find the kid who's sitting by himself. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. Just say, "Hey, do you mind if I sit here with you?" I promise you that kid will be different at the end of the day. You didn't say a dang thing to him. You just say, can I sit with you? And sometimes what happens is then conversation starts. People were designed to be with each other. We were not designed to be alone. And yet we live in a world that kind of pushes us into loneliness and self-absorption. And I really find it fascinating as I walk through here today. I don't get in the trenches as much, and I miss that. But walking through here today, I had guys fist bumping me, hugging me, giving me high fives, joking with me, and saying thank you. And I'm thinking to myself, what I do, And I thought part of it was, I joked with them, I made eye contact, I wasn't afraid to touch them, and that's what they needed. That's what they really need. All the food in the bed. Like I had a guy the other day. We got two guys over in Brevard right now that are going through cancer. The one had bone cancer and such a huge tumor. It's like my hand out here. I just got the picture of him today that I'll share you, and I have no way of sharing it, but it's gone. Okay. But he pulled me aside the other day and he said, the showers are great. The meals are wonderful. I love that I can get a haircut. And he said, but there's two things I really want to thank you for. And he says, one, a second chance at life. I was going to die on the streets. But he said, more importantly than everything is the people. He said, this is my family. It's kind of how I feel it. I got this one great, big, huge, dysfunctional family, and somehow it works.
So Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to sit
Oh,
down
it's
with
my
us.
pleasure.